public outreach. Public outreach was conducted in the manner prescribed by the ordinance. Here are the dates and times which each manner of notification was conducted. We did receive one written comment from the public on Friday, April 19th, regarding the dirt road in the rear of the subdivision, fronting the existing residence. Staff will recommend that the Planning Commission approve Verizon at Cobblestone Farms conditional use permit renewal, CUP 24-02. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? Commissioner Juarez, go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. I had a couple questions here. The first one is, because this is already an existing facility, and my question would be, are they going to continue to operate and maintain the backup power equipment located? Are there any modifications they need to make? Have the permits for these facilities or the equipment been updated to go along with this new approval of this application? And then, because they're operating that type of equipment, is there any additional impact from the last time that they got this permit approved? And then finally, has this facility gone through an inspection by the city or the fire department or whoever that needs to get access to it? For example, the access road, does it still meet the requirements of the fire department to gain access?
Right, so I'll start off with one of the first questions.
Can you speak up just a little, Alex?
Oh, yes, sir. Can you hear me now? So I'll begin with one of the first questions you asked on the impact on the residents. So what we have heard over the past about 12 years now, we haven't received really any comment over the past 12 years. I did receive one comment regarding that dirt road fronting the properties, but outside of that, there were really no adverse impacts from this facility.
Can you share with us what the comment was?
Yeah, so if I go back here. So the site there, so there's just dirt road that runs north-south, connecting to Garden Lane there on the bottom portion of the screen. So that dirt road, we did receive a comment from one of the residents on Sunset Drive, that cul-de-sac street, that the dirt road was kicking up a lot of dust, a lot of dust control issue in the air, impacting the surrounding area. I did connect with the applicant on that after I received that comment, and what I heard is that really this facility only uses that dirt road once every 3 months. The other users are the farmers and anybody else that may be accessing that road for agricultural work.
Okay, now regarding the air quality control permitting and the impact on the neighboring residential, all that's up to date, so we can tie that together with this application again, or?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay, the operation, say for example, the backup generators or any of the fuel tanks, are there any recertification processes that need to be completed before we grant this approval of this reapplication for the facility?
For the renewal of the conditional use permit, there are no inspections required.
Okay.
For this request specifically, correct.
Okay. All right, that's good. I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez.
Anyone else? I have a couple questions. Alex, kind of goes down the same lines as Commissioner Juarez. They've been compliant with the existing conditional use permit. There's been no complaints for 10 or 12 years.
Correct, Chair Robertson.
Okay. The dirt road, is that owned by the cell tower company, or they just have access to that dirt road?
They just have access to that dirt road,
so they're
Chair.
not the owner. Okay.
They do not own the dirt road itself.
So they wouldn't be, there'd be no means for us to require them to do dust control. It's not their road anyway.
That's correct, Chair Robertson.
Okay. And there's a potential for other users coming onto that tower. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair Robertson.
Is there a process for that when it happens?
Correct. They have to go through a zoning approval.
Same thing. Okay. It just doesn't happen automatically. Okay, that's the only comments I had too.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve CUP
Mr.
24-02.
Chair,
You
Mr. Chair, if
need
I
to
might,
open-
public hearing.
I'm sorry?
Got to go with the public hearing. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak on this, now's your time. Come on up. We have one speaker card. One speaker card. Dennis Margovich?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I got it.
You got it right.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm a resident. If you could put that map back up there, that'd be great. Just get an idea where I live. Okay, where the star is at, I'm at the very end, the bottom, the house that's, you would make a right-hand turn off a garden and go north. So my address is 22658 North Sunset Drive. I live on the corner right there. I've been an original owner. I don't have much of a issue with the cell tower. Okay, we went through that 10 years ago, so that's fine. My issue here is with the dust. I'm eating dust left and right. People going through the farm, you see the road continues going to the west. Going north, there's traffic going that way. They exited out towards 347 that way. And I just keep eating dust all the time. I can't sit out there with my wife and have coffee, or we can't keep the windows open at night or during the day. It's just there's constant traffic around that corner and straight ahead. There's very limited gravel or anything there to keep the dust down. It's just a dust bowl. I have video here of a truck today going through there, and if you guys would like to see it, I could show it to you. But it makes it impossible for us to enjoy our home there. I guess what I'm asking is some kind of dust control, whether it be if the city or it's private property, so I'm sure it's the farmer, can lay down some dustless gravel a couple hundred feet each way just to keep the dust down. And I think that would be very helpful, because it's affecting my quality of life there. It really is. And it's really all I've got to say. If you consider that or something, but it's really difficult at times. I haven't complained in 12 years since it's been there, whatever, just because it's just been, hasn't been that bad. But this last summer, we all know it's really brutal, and it was dry. And actually, several times last week, last summer, I took it upon myself to spray water out there with the little garden hose. It took forever, and it only lasted 10 minutes. So, all I did is add more money to my water bill. So, with that, I'd hope to take this into consideration, and hopefully we can get something done there to make my quality of life better for myself. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Chairman Robertson, if I may, and just address this gentleman's, here's where we are. As we learn later this afternoon, there is a PM10 requirement. Particle matter, it's a dust control it's administered through the county. Unfortunately, what we found out later this afternoon was that farmers are exempt from that requirement. However, the road to the cell site has to be an all-weather surface street. All right, so there are some improvements that have to be done with that to maintain the ability for public safety vehicles to get to that site. So what I'll do is I'll get with Wes, our code compliance supervisor. We'll send him out there, and let's take a look at the road itself and just make sure that it meets those all-weather requirements, and that we can at least enact the basic minimal standards that we can get out there. I would just also illustrate that is not a cell site issue. That's the farmer issue that owns the road. So there are some things we can do. We're somewhat limited, but we'll get with Wesley Moss. We'll take a look at it, and we'll do the best we can for you there, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That was kind of going to be my comment, that it's a separate issue from what we're dealing with tonight, and was going to defer to you guys anyway to see if you could help the gentleman out. I'll entertain a motion.
I would like,
Commissioner Hughes.
I just want to ask you a question, and do you think the majority of your dust is coming from the field or the road? The fields, right? Yeah, of course.
Fields generally is heat from alcohol factor, so it's generally has alcohol on it. Everyone's been cut it down. Yeah, the majority of the dust.
All right, thank you.
Third time's a charm, Ted.
okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve CUP 24-02.
We have a motion approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Brem, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Takes us to item 5.3, text amendment 24-01. This will also be a public hearing that will open after the presentation. Text amendment is a request with the City of Maricopa for review and final approval of a proposed text amendment of Section 15.15.060, massage establishments, special requirements, and Section 18.90.030, landscape general requirements of the City of Maricopa Code as contained in Exhibits B and Exhibits D. This will be for discussion and action. Take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is the first of what I believe will be several text amendments coming your way. As you know, and we've talked about in the past, text amendments are necessary from time to time just to upgrade our ordinance and address certain trends, but more specifically keep it relevant to where we are today. So we have a couple of items for you this evening. I would consider them a surgical amendment here in that we needed to come in and act on two of these just right off the bat. Just to give you a little preview, I've got a board in my office that already has 10 additional amendments on it that we're working through moving forward. But these are pretty straight to the point and simple. And I just want to give you a little bit of background on the landscape requirement that we're asking to insert into the ordinance this evening. And I'm not going to read this word for word. I know you all have it in your packets. But I thought it was important to understand how we got here tonight with this. And the Maricopa Code back in 2015 or 16 was rewritten. We started out with the original Pinal County. In 2008 or 9, I believe it was, that we went to the previous version of the code, and then when we rewrote it in 2017, I believe it was, there were some omissions in there. And one of them was the landscape language that you're seeing before you this evening. This was literally word for word in the previous ordinance, and for some reason was omitted when we rewrote it. Yet it's really a critical piece of documentation when it comes to the management of the roads and the roadways and the right-of-ways within our city. So you think it's real simple, the city does this maintenance and the homeowners or the property owners do that. Well, it's not always that clearly defined. And so as we go through, typically when we approve landscape plans, we're able to identify these areas, and we're crystal clear in the preliminary plats and in the final plats when those are going through what the maintenance responsibilities are. However, over time there have been a number of developments that have been approved where it's not so crystal clear. So what this document or what this provision does is crystal clear define who's responsible for what. And it states it clearly that essentially, any arterial or public right-of-way within your development or that you're adjacent to, you're responsible for that landscape maintenance, even if it's located in the right-of-way. I'd like to just preclude that and just emphasize that does not address medians within the road. If you're adjacent to a roadway with a median in it, the City of Maricopa is maintaining that median. But from the back of your perimeter wall, up to the sidewalk or back a curb, any landscape that's in there, you're responsible for maintaining. On a public street, say interior to a community, you know, if you have a detached sidewalk and you have that 3-foot landscape strip in there, you know, this makes it, again, crystal clear that the homeowners association or the property owner are responsible for that maintenance. And what this does more than anything is it just solidifies the notes that we're putting on preliminary and final plats. But what it also does is just reiterate what the responsibility is for those developments that came before that that may not have those notes put on their, you know, inscribed on their plats. So that's the history behind that. And again, we added the, you know, given it the time frame so that we clearly state, you know, what the responsibility is and when it's to occur. And this just helps solidify our code compliance's ability to really maintain our public streets out there and keep them looking nice. The second, with respect to massage establishments, this is another one that was addressed in the previous code. And when it was rewritten, there was a sign requirement that was enacted for a commercial massage establishment that really hindered or eliminated the ability for a home-based business to be approved. You know, through the business license process, a massage establishment is an approved home-based business. However, since the code did not distinguish between whether it was home-based or it was commercial, essentially the requirements would eliminate or preclude any home-based massage establishment. So what we've done in here is we've gone in and we've addressed those establishments. We've left the commercial requirements with respect to signage and how much and where it's located and how it has to be affixed on site. And what we've gone in and has just clarified that it is a different set of circumstances for a home-based business versus a commercial business. You know, up until now we haven't defined the two, and the premise behind this was we had an established business that had been had been in business since 2016. I think it was, came back in to renew their license, and technically we couldn't approve it because we had taken it out and never addressed the home-based aspect of it. So again, I'm not going to read this word for word for you. It's in your packets, and I think that clearly defines what brought us here this evening. So with that being said, from a public notice standpoint, we ran a newspaper ad that came out on April 2nd. The actual proposed amendment has been on our city website now for almost 8 weeks. Excuse me. And I can say as of the date of this meeting, we've had 0 public input or correspondence on this. So that being said, staff does recommend approval of the text amendment before you this evening as contained in the exhibits B and D in your staff reports. That concludes my presentation this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Commissioners? Start down here with Commissioner Hughes.
Okay, so that I understand this correctly, I know of small business located in homes, okay, and let's say a chiropractor, all right? In that chiropractor's practice, he has massages and also lives in that home.
Correct.
So this ordinance is not going to affect his business at all.
Chairman, Commissioners, no, sir, it would not. And now I would state that they would still have to meet all the requirements of a home occupation business, you know, which deals with the nuisances in the neighborhood, the amount of trips, the number of employees. He would still be required to meet that. But this specific provision in regard to the massage establishment would not. It would not apply to him.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, business run out of the homes. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Juarez.
I just had one question related to the landscaping portion of it. Who monitors and enforces these landscape requirements? Because I noticed, and a lot of it has to do with the recent rains we've had. These weeds have gotten out of control. And over the past summer, a lot of vegetation has died off. A lot of trees were knocked down during storms. And in a lot of areas, a lot of these vegetation has not been replaced. And some of the excuses that come back from the HOAs is, well, either there's no money, we're working on it, but it never seems to get around where they're replacing it and stuff. And little by little, a lot of this vegetation is disappearing, and all we got is like gravel.
Yeah, Chairman Robertson, Commissioner Ward, excellent question. The ultimate answer to that is it relies our code compliance department. You know, they're out there in the neighborhoods daily. We're not out searching for things, but they are eyes and ears on the community, and they notice, and act accordingly. And again, you're right. Times have been a little tough. Every HOA has a tough story. Money is tight. But Wes and his department, they really go out of their way to find ways to be successful. I don't want to speak for them, but there are certainly times where they have to ticket. But for the most part, there's just a really concentrated effort to work with them to try and get it restored to the standard that we need to be. I know we've got a road, I think it's the Homestead Development along Porter. They're replacing a lot of landscaping and rock all along there. It's taken us a while to get there. It's a $70,000 project. That's a lot of money for an HOA. So it takes a group of people working together, and our code compliance department is outstanding.
Just to follow up on that, I understand both sides, from the city that has to enforce this regulation, and then on the HOA side, they have to balance their budgets and find a pot of money that, on an annual basis, that they can afford to replace or replenish this vegetation that's dying off, or it just non-existent anymore. But my issue basically is, if we're going to develop these guidelines or rules, then I would hate to put one in place and it doesn't get enforced, right. And little by little, the ability to enforce these things diminishes, and people just kind of like, they're not going to do anything anyway.
Well, again, Chairman, Commissioners, I think it's an excellent point, Commissioner Juarez. The one thing that I would say is, one bad apple doesn't spoil a whole pot. I think the majority of folks out there are, will never hear from Wes and his department. I think there are those that sometimes run into issues, and but I think for the most part, folks do a really good job of taking care of the landscape. Yes, we run into issues around town. Yes, we have to work with the HOAs, but I think for the most part, you drive up and down our arterial roads here, and they look pretty good. That doesn't mean that issues don't come up, but I know that Wes and the code compartment team is just, they're so diligent and they're so good. And a good rule of thumb is if we have an HOA that's working hard to, and putting a plan to get together with them, then the city will continue to work with them and not cite it and fine them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I can tell you, when I first moved here, that's one of the first things that impressed me about the community, how well maintained the vegetation was, the trees, the streets, everything looked really, really clean. Over a period of time, like I said, we had a couple of really bad summers and a lot of rain, and both those bring their own problems along with it. Just looking for ways how, if we're going to develop regulation like this, how we enforce it. I'm not saying to be a bad cop out there, but put a regulation out there that people can, that's attainable, our goals are attainable to meet that regulation.
Well, I think, again, Commissioners, I think it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's an ordinance that it works across the board. You know, obviously, for those that are coming through now, we're putting those stipulations and those requirements and notes on their preliminary plats and final plats. But this goes a long ways to clearly stating the standard for those that came before that we may not have put those conditions on their approvals. So I think this will go a long ways toward helping, you know, state a standard, but also helping our code compliance department, you know, maintain that standard as well.
Okay.
Commissioner Irving?
Yeah. On the issue of 15060 about the massage establishment, I guess my concern is, and I clearly understand what you're trying to do, I guess I want to flip-flop it. I worry about sort of what Commissioner was talking about, the ability to maintain it, so all of a sudden we don't have a rash of businesses setting up in homes without any monitoring there. You know, because again, if I drive around and the sign says that's what it is, I know, okay? Now what we're setting up is a situation in homes. There could be all sorts of business. I have no idea what they are. I have no idea if anybody's going to monitor the nuisance factor. And I just don't know because there's nothing identifying it. You follow? So I just think you solve one problem and could have created a bigger one.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think that's, I understand your point 100%. You know, and I would just state that as a home-based business, there's still certain requirements they have to meet, you know, with respect to employees, number of people coming to the house, the trips it generates, the number of employees. You know, they cannot put any signage out in the front yard, so there's no signage associated with this whatsoever. And to be on, and you know, the reality of it is they're already out there. You know, there are some of these already in the city. You know, it's a permitted use with a regulated business license. You know, and so there are specific requirements they have to meet in order to do business in the city from their home.
Yeah, I agree, and I support it. All I'm saying is I'm just thinking for the city to understand that this could enhance a growth of this, so it could be a greater monitoring problem, because now residents won't be able to identify that. You know, that's all. But it solves one, but could open up something else. On the other thing, it's the same issue with the landscaping. I also understand that, but I'm not convinced it'll be monitored because it's not monitored now. The thing too is I really think there has to be some system set up with HOAs, because the problem is we work hard in this commission with some trees that shouldn't be put up, and it was a disaster. So I guess my concern is exactly what yours is that it's good to do it. I'm glad we have it, but to me as a homeowner, you're giving me, which I want, some type of entitlement that I expect it to happen now, because it's a city recommendation. I just think, for instance, when we moved from the Midwest, they all put in these trees. Well, we didn't know the trees would blow over in a 5-mile wind. We found out. So I guess all I'm saying is it's good. I'm glad it's there. And the other thing, too, is I think there should be some check about what type of tree is put in. Okay, because that was the other issue we dealt with. So I think it's good and it's well-meaning, but again, we know in Maricopa, in Arizona, any kind of wind could take that down, and if trees are all over the place. This ordinance doesn't say, well, you're exempt because you don't have money.
Correct.
So, just, if you're going to have it, let's have it, but there's got to be some teeth to it, that's all I'm saying.
Commissioner
Like what you were
Robertson, Commissioner Irving, and I realize that was just pretty much a statement that you were making there, but you did state one thing about, the trees, and the one thing I would just point out is there is an approved ADW plant list that any tree in the city it has to come off that list. So there is.
If it's monitored.
Yes. Yeah, but the one thing that I'll point out is that we have some older neighborhoods in the city that those requirements weren't associated with it.
I'm all for it. I'm just saying.
No, I hear you. It's one of the challenges that we
Right.
face in
That's right.
policing the community and getting that done.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it, though. It's a good job.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yeah, thank you. I'd probably like to interject a little levity into this conversation, but my friend from Illinois hit on it, but didn't exactly say it, I don't think. But it, a lot of different businesses being operated out of their home, I would assume, I guess, that's what you're trying to address. And so, you got any of those addresses for me? Just kidding. Thank you.
Sort of.
Commissioner Singleton.
So back to the landscaping. So you did state that those older neighborhoods and stuff like that. How are we disseminating this to those older neighborhoods versus other than code enforcement has slapped you with a ticket or something like that? What's the process look there?
Commissioner, Chairman, that would really be a code compliance question. I would hate, I don't want to speak for those guys because it's certainly not my expertise, but what I would be more than happy to do is put Wes Moss in contact with you, and he could give you a much more detailed, answering of that than I could.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I'd like to hear
just
that.
don't want it to be a surprise to some of those older
Right,
HOAs
yeah.
that are been in
Well,
came in versus like in Pinal County, right? Versus City of Maricopa. So
you know what, and this is off topic a little bit, but since we spend a lot of time talking about code and maybe that's one of the avenues of the city that we need to bring Wes in here and just have an infomercial type study session and just talk about those things. I'll certainly bring that up as well. What we're trying to do here more than anything is make his job a little more easier, give him some more teeth for what they're facing out there in the public, and I think this does that.
Good job.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Brem.
I had one question, really just for my edification on this. So, and this might be more on the code side, but what are the penalties for being out of compliance? I mean, is it something like if you're a property owner in one of these older neighborhoods where you don't have an HOA, is that something that's going to be this huge surprise for you because maybe you got grandfathered into a problem, or what do they look like, those penalties?
Chairman, Commissioner Brent, I think it's an excellent question. Again, I think that's a code compliance procedural matter, and again, I think I know the answer, but I don't want to be, they see the violations, they contact the owner. There are communities out there that don't have HOAs. Then it becomes then a homeowner issue. That's the way I believe it goes. But to be more specific than that, sir, I would be speculating.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Juarez.
I just wanted to tag along on the recommendation. Could we get Wes give a presentation at our next meeting? Based on your recommendation.
I think the next meeting, Chairman Robertson, Commissioners, I think the next meeting might be a little quick. But I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to talk to Rudy. I'm going to see what they think. And I think that's a vital part of the city that, it would be good for anybody watching to understand it better as well. And there is no one better to talk about it than Wesley Moss.
Mr. Chairman?
And
Okay, just one more, just to follow up. I understand this goes to individual property owners and to homeowners associations. Does this also apply to the city? For example, keeping up the vegetation in the medians or any property that the city has trees or vegetation on? Does-
Chairman, Commissioner, good question. I mean, this specific item does not apply to the city. I mean, it's specifically homeowners associations.
right.
But there are medians around the valley, around the city that, that we do maintain, and there will be medians in the future that we maintain. So it's a good question, but this specific text amendment does not apply to the city.
Rick, I'm going to entertain one more question from Commissioner Yoakum, then I'm going to cut off and go to a vote. We're getting into the weeds. These are not applicable to the case in front of us. Good discussion. It's important, and we learn a little bit each time, but we'll get back on topic. One more
Yeah, I
comment.
just have a comment, and that is that the extension and degree of enforcement has always been a challenge with the city. And I really don't know what we can do about that. I don't know what kind of staff we have that is responsible for or actually does the enforcement. But I think that's an area that we really have to take a look at and, if necessary, improve it. I realize we don't have the power to do that, but perhaps you could talk to your counterparts and see what they could do.
Chairman, Commissioners, duly noted.
Great discussion, guys. Entertain a motion on item 5.3, text 24-0.
Mr. Chair, public
Oh, I'm
hearing.
sorry, public hearing. Thank you. We'll open a public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, come forward, please. See, I knew that was going to happen. We'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion?
So moved?
Where'd it come from? Commissioner Juarez, motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Commissioner Singleton, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Rick. That brings us to a report from commission and/or staff. We'll go to Rick first for a report from staff.
Thank you, Chairman Robertson, members of the commission. Just want to let you know that our next planning commission meeting will be held on May 13th. I believe the second meeting falls on the Memorial Day weekend, so we won't be meeting that week, but we do have, we've already got items scheduled for the first meeting in June, so it looks like we're going to, hit a couple in a row there. Just want to let you know what was going on with that. And secondly, we've got some new staff in the building this evening that I would like to introduce y'all to. We have a new Planning Commission secretary. That'd be Miss Julie Alvarez sitting over there in the white. And I failed to introduce her to y'all last meeting we were here. And so please forgive me, and Julie, please forgive me.
That's
as well.
because she was still interviewing you. She's decided to stay.
Well, and I'm tickled to death that she's decided to stay. And we have another new addition that probably won't be too long for y'all to see her here at the podium. But Laree is a planner that came from Pinal County. Today is her, starts her second week here. And she's doing great, and I just wanted y'all to see her, and because you're going to see her again in the future as well. I think we've got a great team going. I think we're doing good things with the commission as well, and I look forward to where we go from here, and I'll keep y'all updated. Just to give you one last item, we have a transportation update coming to y'all. We're putting together the presentation for it now. It may be May, but I would think no later than June. That's coming in, and that's the first of several things that we've got coming through. So that concludes my presentation, Chairman, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, Rick, thank you. Welcome aboard, ladies, and we promise not to talk too badly about Pinal County Planning and Zoning. I had one item, Rick. I've noticed we have two different color signs now, white ones and orange ones. Can you explain the rationale there, what that means? We're talking about our zoning signs that go on the property.
Chairman, Little off topic here, but I'm going to answer this one here. Not on the agenda, but a little bit of leeway. If you'll remember the last text amendment that we did, we addressed signage and public notice signing, and we went to a much bigger sign and a white sign in order to affect more people. So there are some small yellow ones, orange ones that are still you might see around that are specific for temporary use permits, but general plan amendments, text amendments, or not text amendments, rezones, and DRP notification, site plan, are going to be the big signs. And they should be all orange. If it was white, we missed something.
I saw two white ones. One is over there where Lowe's is going in. And where did I see the other one?
Yep, should have been orange.
Okay, but
And 4 by 8. You know,
policy calls for orange.
policy
Okay,
calls for it.
that's the only thing I have. Anything else for the commissioners, for staff? Motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.